Hey, thank you so much,
Fantastic.
Izzy. Hello, everybody. Hi, Sonia. Hi, friends, and showing up in the chat. Terrence, so many of you. I know that it's a busy day in the midst of a busy time, so I appreciate you being here.
Totally. I can kind of give some context maybe to start. Um, really grateful for people joining. We'll be here for the next half an hour or so, a little bit more to talk about politics, actually, but a specific kind of dimension and element of them. Maybe for context, I'll say that I am here in Oakland, California right now. I grew up in the state of California. Spent the first 20 something years of my life in Fresno. I've been in the Bay for about a decade. Doing a little bit of a lot of different things, a few different worlds, a few different vortexes. And I actually met Yoana a decade ago, just about, in law school, where we were on, in some ways, very different, in some ways, just the same path. You know, a lot of things change, a lot of things don't, or evolve in different ways. And we've talked about every aspect that I can think of like how to seek and create and design and support the um, kind of growing and planting of a better world, whatever that looks like, through healing and care and justice and so many other kind of aspects and elements. Um, Ioana is running for office in the state of California, and we'll share a little bit more about that as part of this conversation. But like part of the reason I wanted to meet up with you and spend time with you is because I'm always like scrambling to figure out who to vote for, how to even navigate electoral politics, you know, in a world that's so easy to be cynical and disillusioned by them, I think for a lot of very good reasons. I experienced that a lot. Um, and over the last, I've been in the kind of US political mix for over 15 years and just following it since I was even a kid. And I found myself like in some ways more and more interested in specific aspects and more detached. And I think like having this, having someone like Joanna run and having people like around her and see like exactly who, because it's not just like who we're looking up to anymore. It's just like the people around us that are starting to have to engage with these mechanisms of change. It started to shift my own perspective of how to navigate that. So wanted to join, wanted us to have a conversation a little bit today about the why and how of what's going on in the state and how we navigate some of those larger questions, and then some specifics around like who the heck is on the ballot and what's going on. Usually I do this in like the 12 hours before the ballots are due, so I'm also trying to like be a little more responsible in my own role, being like, hey, there's actually time, like spend some time to figure out what's going on and so on. So that's like a little bit of where I'm at. I'm curious, Joanna, if you want to introduce yourself, maybe share a little bit about what you're up to and what you're doing, and then I'm down to get into it in whatever version.
Thank you, Izzy. Let's do it. I feel like I had to pull Izzy's beard to be like, let's do this early, not do this last minute. Because those of us who are running for
Absolutely.
office are having this experience, will have this experience on March 5th when all the votes will not be counted and we'll be like, praying for days to come before all the votes come in. So it actually really helps us when people vote early um, and vote at all. So, but I just want to start by acknowledging that this is a very difficult, painful time we're living through. I still can't sleep. I still have nightmares. I still cry a lot, witnessing the videos that are coming out of Gaza, the genocide that is happening with our taxpayer dollars, with our weapons, that is completely unjustifiable. And also the pain that folks are feeling right here in Oakland. Every time we walk down the street and see a human being living on a tent in the cold, in the rain, it hurts.
Mm-hmm.
It hurts. It hurts me. It should hurt everybody, because it's not okay. And so it's dark. The reality is dark. I in many ways feel, Izzy, I don't know if you feel this way, but I feel like things have just been getting worse and are going to continue to get worse, almost like exponentially, like everything is falling apart in this late stage capitalism, like that the empire has stricken back with almost every like way that it can on the progress that we have been making. And so the stakes feel higher, and the need for those of us who are doing healing work, who are artists, who are dancers, who are creators, who are organizers, who are attorneys, to show up in any way that we can is all the more necessary, to bring a little bit more light to this darkness. And so, yeah, I'm happy. I guess I should share, I'm an attorney, I'm a restorative justice circle keeper. I'm an immigrant from Bulgaria who has found home in Oakland, who's been here trying to do my part and, bringing about a community-led vision for justice that is not about incarceration and punishment, but it is about healing and transformation and true accountability. And I think I'm going to pause on sharing about our race until we get to that part of the ballot.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
As we are going to talk about this ballot, I want to just name a few principles that I've been using in deciding who I'm going to vote for. Every year, I usually make a voter guide every time there's an election. And this time I didn't, because there's some really good voter guides out there, but I decided to do this Instagram live.
But I do want to mention that, though, because I really do. I mean, anyone who knows me, including some folks that are here right now, I tend to do things at the last minute. And sometimes that works, and sometimes it's really not the best idea. And I think, to your point, as the stakes feel and continue to get higher with how we experience our day to day, it does feel like some planning is going to be needed or is needed, and thinking ahead. So it's interesting, because in some ways that's a microcosm of this larger thing, which is part of the nature of voting and nature of participating in civic engagement in the democratic process, is that it's not quite it's kind of a practice of delayed gratification and trusting and believing that's possible. So while things do feel really challenging in so many ways and really dire in so many ways for all the reasons you mentioned, I also do feel like part of what's important is that people maintain at least a thread of awareness that there are possibilities for change, that there are mechanisms that can be kind of engaged with and levers that can be pulled and so on. So maybe that's sort of the spirit of the conversation today, of being who's on the ballot, what exactly are we doing? Mm-hmm. I'm basically posting this to get a public education on some of these aspects.
Yeah, we're definitely going to.
I need it, and I think a lot of people around me and around us need it. So.
Yeah, and just to say, electoral politics are one tactic in a much broader strategy, right? Whether it's marching on the streets, or calling and holding our elected representatives accountable, or running as outside of the two-party electoral system, or all the other things that each one of us is doing in our communities, there are many ways to support our movements for justice and healing and liberation, but we cannot ignore this way. I think part of what's been happening is that because the two-party system is so limiting, and because so many elected officials do not really do the work for the people, a lot of people have felt like their vote doesn't matter. We don't even have to deal with this whole thing called the electoral system, which is how the people who stay in power continue to stay in power. It's how the whole system perpetuates itself. So for me, running for a Democratic Central Committee, I'm running not because I love the Democratic Party, but because the Democratic Party has so much control over the policies that influence the lives of so many of us and our relatives, in other parts of the world. So yes to the movement, yes to being aware and remembering that there are many tactics, and yes to voting as well, as something that many of our ancestors fought for to be able to do in this country.
Totally. With that, maybe we should get into it, because there's so many names. And I was telling Yoana before we were praying, I was like, there's a version of me that could play dumb for this and be like, who are these? But then I was looking through the ballot before. I just got mine in the mail a couple days ago, and was out of town, came home, just opened it, and I'm like, oh, there's actually a lot of things that I don't know here. So maybe we can spend, the rest of the time going through, just for people who are watching now or later, just to get a little bit of a sense. And it's nice because it is true. I think I've relied a lot on your voter guides in the past, and I do feel like it's really funny, because I'm like, okay, thank God that someone is paying a lot of attention to this, because sometimes I just don't even know where to start. So,
right.
And maybe with that, can I segue us into the conversation?
Yeah, I just wanted to give a quick note first about how to even get your ballot. Izzy said he got his ballot in the mail. Everybody should have gotten their ballot in the mail. If you have not received your ballot, please go to a polling place anytime between now and March 5th and just say, hey, I never got my ballot, and they'll give you a ballot on the spot. You can fill it out then or bring it back later. If the other thing that a lot of folks don't know is that even if you're unhoused or even if you have a felony record, you can vote in California. You can vote even if you're on parole or probation. The only time you cannot vote is when you're in prison for the time when you're serving your actual sentence. And then the last piece I'll mention is that anybody who, for example, if you registered to vote in a previous address, so you never got your ballot because you never updated your address, you can go to a polling place and do something called same-day registration, where you just say, hey, I'm going to re-register with my new address, and then they'll give you the ballot on the spot. It's the same process if you want to change your party preference. I know so many folks, me too, I was registered as no party preference, or I was at some point was Peace and Freedom Party because, peace and freedom. Who doesn't?
That sounds great. Like, what's wrong with that? Yeah, totally.
Peace and Freedom Party, geez. No, but no joke. Peace and Freedom are really good people, and so is the Green Party and so many others. And so, if it's your choice to make sure you don't vote, with Democratic or Republican, like absolutely keep that ballot. You cannot vote for me, but you can vote for everybody else, who's actually on the rest of the ballot. But if you do want to change your voter registration to Democratic so that you can vote, for example, in a Democratic Central Committee race, you can still do that. You same process. You go to a polling place that says same day registration, and you say you want to change your registrations, and we'll put those links in the chat.
And then that information, just to clarify, that information gets updated and then remains, right? So then, like, until you change it, like, you're then, at least, like, for the sake of the voting issues associated with that party. And that's a really key detail, because I think a lot of people are, like, don't realize that, like, assigning yourself to a party, first off, it doesn't mean that you need to vote in any direction. You can always vote however you want, but that does affect who you can vote for in certain, especially primary races. That's a key detail that, like, I think that if you're not registered, then you don't have a kind of, like, point of entry into that conversation. You can still vote in the final, rounds, but that's a factor. I think I didn't know that until I think I went through the process of understanding the difference between independent, no party preference, and other things, like, some years ago.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so to be able to vote you can only vote in the primary of the party that you're registered for.
Right, exactly. That's a simpler way of saying what I was saying, yeah.
Yeah, no problem. And so we're going to jump into the rest of this ballot here. I just want to name the principles that I use when deciding who to vote for. At this time, right, in this moment in 2024. Number one is candidates who have taken a strong stance calling for a ceasefire in Gaza, right? I am not going to vote for anybody who has supported or is complicit in this genocide. Number two, candidates who have a community-based approach to addressing issues like housing and public safety. And that means investing in community-based solutions to housing, for example, like community land trusts, like actually affordable housing, as opposed to corporate-based solutions, which just say, let's build more, let's give tax subsidies to developers who then become corporate landlords and buy out so many properties within our cities. And then lastly, the last criteria for me is candidates who are corporate free, right? Who are entirely people powered and not take money from corporations, from fossil fuel lobbies, from gun lobbies, and all the rest of the lobbies that really rule our political system.
That sounds hard.
Yeah.
Right? It must be. Like, that must be so difficult to, like, actually be able to stick to those principles, like those principles in general, but in particular with, like, where the money comes from and how people navigate, the associations. Like, that's a significant factor.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, let's do it. So if you are looking at a Democratic Party ballot, the first page.
Okay. Am I allowed to show this?
Yeah,
I feel like
sure.
there's, like, rules. Okay, great.
That's fine. I don't know.
I was like, okay, wait a minute. What's the important part? Okay, got it. I'll figure it out.
So, if you have a Democratic Party ballot, the first part is going to say president, and right next to it is going to say Democratic Central Committee.
Right.
So this is the really shitty part, right? We cannot. I am not voting for Joe Biden, since he's let's just say, yeah, he has done nothing for a ceasefire under the contrary. He's funding Israel and he's a Zionist. So what I'm gonna put likely is on the write-in portion. I'm gonna put ceasefire. That's like a movement request that some folks have been pushing for, to make it clear to the Democratic Party that we are demanding a ceasefire. Now, the reality is there are a few candidates on this list who have called for a ceasefire, like Marianne Williamson has, but she dropped out of the race. So I'm not sure why I vote for her if she's no longer in the race.
Oh, and interesting. I don't think I heard that either. Okay, see, this is what I mean. I'm like learning a lot.
Yeah. And then the first person on your ballot, Eban Cambridge. Funny enough, I just met him. He's this amazing young man, I think from Oakland, a young Black man who I met at this Allen Temple Baptist Church service that was fully transformational. And he's inspiring, he's courageous. Everybody there was like, well, why run for president? Like, duh, you're never going to become the president. You're so young. But in reality, he has taken a position for a ceasefire. He's opposing the recall of DA Price. So I just want to applaud him for having the courage to put his name out there and to demand change. So if you want to, if you don't want to put ceasefire on the bottom, I would say vote for Eban and let's support our young people who are stepping up to lead.
It sounds like at the very least, it's worth understanding who some of these less familiar names are. I think that there's a couple that people probably who've been following politics, national politics for the last few years might be familiar with. But maybe like the main thing is like look into who else is showing up. Maybe that's like the big takeaway in my mind, which is like who else is showing up to play this type of leadership roles.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, exactly. So then the next race on your first page is the Democratic Central Committee. If you live in Assembly District 18, which is Oakland, Alameda, and Emerville, you're going to see 29 names on there.
Is that how many names here? It's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot of names. And yeah. And I think I should first explain what a Democratic Central Committee is and then let you know why me and my slide mates are running. The Central Committee is the most local body of the Democratic Party. It passes resolutions, it takes positions on bills, and then it very importantly, it decides endorsements when it comes to elections. And it's supposed to represent the people of Alameda County. Now, the people who are currently in those elected positions tend to be political insiders. Some of them receive corporate money, are part of different lobbies, and are generally older and do not really represent neither the diversity nor the values of our communities. So me and I'm running as part of a slate of 10 community folks, community leaders who are trying to bring change to the Democratic Central Committee. We want to bring the voices of our people, the voices of our communities. We want to advocate for the kind of the policies that our communities want. Things like clearly a ceasefire in Gaza, things like more money going to community safety measures like violence interrupters and safety ambassadors, mental health services, youth centers, and of course, more money going to affordable housing. And we can do those things by writing resolutions, by taking positions on bills, and by requiring, for example, that elected candidates who are running for higher office, who are coming to us for endorsements, have taken stances that are aligned with our principles. And so, if you want to vote for us, dun, 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 you can select our 10 names, and I'm gonna say our names real quick right now, and then I'm gonna put in the chat later our slate graphic. But our
maybe before you do that, also I'll say people can. I think that if people are interested, you should listen to the names and also consider following Yoana, because I think that there's a lot of information that she's also shared in case you need faces to names or more context. But yeah, go for it.
Yeah, Yeah, no, absolutely. So the 10 names are Austin Tam, who's an awesome disability community advocate in Alameda. He and I wrote the ceasefire resolution that the Central Committee passed early on. Chaney Turner, who's a cannabis equity leader in Oakland. Myself, Yoana Tchoukleva, it says public interest attorney on there. Desmond Jeffries, who's a program specialist, an educator, an amazing human being, who's also done a lot for our city. Andrea Bocanegra, who's a teacher, lives in East Oakland and trains young and like coaches young people and trains young people. And Howard Eggerman, who's a union representative, kind of a senior and older man, because I think a lot of our elders are left out of the picture often, just as much as our very young people. Kalimah Priforce is this Emeryville City Council member, one of the most inspiring people that I know. Royal Roberts is an assistant district attorney in DA Price's office, who is already on the Central Committee, has done really good work there. And then Iris Merriouns, who's a legislative director to Councilmember Ramachandran's office, and is from Oakland and knows so much about what the policies that we need locally. And I didn't mean to miss, but I did miss DA Pamela Price. This is entirely separate from her work as an elected district attorney.
Right.
Before she ran for district attorney, she was a member of the Central Committee because she also wanted to bring newer folks and more progressive voices to the Central Committee. And so she's running for re-election right now. And
real quick, what is the 18th Assembly? Or sorry, 18th District? So people actually know like whether or not they're in it.
Yeah, Oakland, Alameda, and Emeryville.
Okay, great.
So if you are in a different part of Alameda County, let's say you're in Berkeley, if you're in Berkeley, you're in AD 14. Albany also AD 14. And then there's three other assembly districts that fall within Alameda County. That's Assembly District 16, 20, and 24. So what you can do to figure out who to vote for Central Committee is go to our website, peoplepoweredprogressives.com, and you see the other folks who are members of our slate who are running in those assembly districts. We have the only slate, our People Powered slate is the only slate that's county-wide, which in itself is kind of a feat because there's 29 of us and it takes a lot to organize 29 people.
Totally. But just getting like a schedule with like 5 people is hard. I can't imagine.
Yeah. But it's also the way that we are, right? Like we are driven by a vision for collective change. And to do that requires many of us to be able to organize across cities and across borders. So we're the only slate that's countywide. We're probably factually the most diverse slate out there that's running. And just so you know, for example, in Assembly District 18, there's 2 other slates of folks. The rest of the names of those 29, and some of them I know, and I appreciate their work. And those are, there's a slate that's organized by Mia Bonta's legislative staff, this woman called Rowena Brown, who's amazing, and a separate slate that's organized by Lauren Taylor. And I have love and respect for everybody, but we're the only ones who've really been showing up, going to the Central Committee meetings, advocating and doing the work. So I know that we have what it takes to be the change in their body.
That's really helpful. And can people go to People Powered Progressives for anywhere in California, or is that just for the Bay Area?
Bay Area, Alameda County only. Yes.
Okay, great. I asked because there's definitely people who are all over the state who I think might hear this, and I think that maybe the takeaway here for folks that are not in the Bay Area is like to spend some time like figuring out who exactly are the folks that are on the ballot and finding good kind of trusted references for understanding where they're coming from, what their positions are, all of that good stuff.
Yeah, and I can drop in the comments after this video is over a couple of voter guides that include Contra Costa County, Solano County, San Francisco County, multiple counties. So that
I think that'd be great. I think that'd be great for people to have. Yeah. Awesome. Okay, so should we talk about U.S. Senator and maybe Representative as like the next 2 areas?
Yes, this is a really important race, y'all. U.S. Senate. So
okay, this is the backside of the first page, by the way.
Dianne Feinstein was our U.S. Senator for a long, long time. And now there are a number of people running for U.S. Senate. 4 of them are like, more well-known than others. And the reason why this is a really important race is because, as you know, we only have a certain number of senators in the U.S. Congress.
Well, let's clarify that for people, because I know that, but I don't know if everyone knows that. Like, the key detail is that the Senate has 2 representatives from every state. The House of Representatives has a population-based number, which is a different dynamic, and it's much more regional.
That's right.
But the Senate, it's 2. So yeah, the fact that one of the long-term serving California state senators has ended her career and is now shifting, like that, I think is a key detail.
Yeah. So the person I'll be voting for in that race is Barbara Lee. She has been our U.S. Congresswoman, so she has represented us, Oakland specifically, in the area, in the House of Representatives for a long, long time. She's a Black woman who had so much courage throughout her entire career, including being the sole dissenting voice when the U.S. started waging war in Iraq.
In Iraq in 2003. Yep.
Exactly. And she has also done a lot on to advance like the idea and the policies around healthcare for all, through a single, healthcare through a single payer system. She's fighting against climate change and really prioritizing lower income neighborhoods and communities of color. And she's the only person in this race who has stood with us and called for a ceasefire in Gaza from the very beginning. Most people were not willing to touch that issue. One of the people who's running against Barbara Lee is Katie Porter, who's a congresswoman from SoCal. And when she came to a Central Committee meeting and we straight up asked her, what is your position on the ceasefire? She said, it's very unfortunate how kids often become collateral damage during war. That was her statement. She did not say it. She did not call for it. She has not done any of the work on that. So even for that reason alone, I'm voting for Barbara Lee.
For those that don't have context, by the way, Barbara Lee is also one of the most well-known champions for cannabis and other kinds of criminal justice reform over the last decades in her career. So like a lot of folks know, I think, her in that context as well.
Thank you. Thanks for adding that piece. Now, I've heard people say, so Adam Schiff is right now polling the highest. He's a Democrat. He has a lot of corporate funds. And then the Republican candidate is polling second. And then is Katie Porter, and then is Barbara Lee. And the way these whole races work is that whoever gets the most votes, the top 2 vote getters from the primary end up in the general election in November. So some folks are saying, oh, don't vote for Barbara Lee because she's polling so low. We should vote for Katie Porter so she can square off with Adam Schiff, and we don't have a Republican who can square off with Adam Schiff in November. So there's like a whole strategic thing happening there. For me, the polls are very clear that if it's Adam Schiff and the Republican, Adam Schiff is going to win. So I don't, and because I am so ideologically aligned with Barbara Lee and stand behind her 100%, and we need Black women in the Senate, I'm going to vote for her regardless because it's the right thing to do. And I know that vote is not going to, lead to a Republican in office. If Adam Schiff is going to win already, okay, well, fine. But we can actually send a signal to the Democratic Party as a whole. So many Californians are standing with Barbara Lee in part because of her stance on ceasefire.
So just for the folks that are thinking of it strategically, there's like, what we're saying here is like there's 2 possibilities. One is to look at the polls and understand enough of the dynamics to say that like in a face-off between a Democrat and a Republican for this role in our district, that it's unlikely that we would actually, or this is statewide, right? So like regardless, that it's unlikely to go to a Republican.
Yeah, it won't. It won't. It would stay like with a Democrat, and most likely that would be Adam Schiff. But it's still important to vote for Barbara Lee because she represents us. She has, spoken for us, and is the best candidate for us.
Totally. And just just to be clear, because what I see is like there's a full term vote and a partial term vote.
Oh yeah.
What's the thing? Should we vote the same for that or different?
Yeah,
Okay.
we're voting the same. This is because Dianne Feinstein passed away. We're
Right.
not, towards the end of her term. So there's like a period of her term that, needs to be filled
Got it.
before the new term begins.
Got it. Okay. Thank you for clarifying. Because I saw that and I was like not sure exactly like maybe there was a strategy there. Okay, cool. Thank you. We've got a few more minutes. I think that we should, I'm curious what you think are the next, maybe the U.S. representative, probably, right, for the district?
Yeah. So we can go down the ballot. We can maybe speed it up a little bit.
Let's get excited. And I have a lot of questions and there's like a lot of context. So it's like helpful. So yeah, no, we can use the time however we think is most useful. I'm not in a rush or concerned, but I'm like, okay, so we've got U.S. representative, state senator, state assembly, judges, and then of course the like city, and is there a state?
There's one state proposition.
One state proposition, right? Yes, right. Prop one. Cool. So yeah, let's go.
Let's do it. So U.S. Congress, also a very important role, of course. So if I'm in the 12th congressional district, if you are as well, I really recommend. I love this. That's because I did this. Okay, that was cool.
Weird.
Anyways, little Instagram moments. But I'm in the 12th congressional district, and if you are as well, I highly recommend you vote for Lateefah Simon. Lateefah Simon is a longtime community organizer, leader, and was the president of the Akonadi Foundation. Has been on the board of directors for a long time, and has really worked to make public transportation more affordable. I've met her personally. She's one of the people who truly inspires me on this path, and has fought for marginalized folks with disability, folks of color, folks who are working 3 jobs, etc. She's actually endorsed by Barbara Lee, and God willing, she's going to be the one to win, and we have to back her up 100%.
Great. That's clear. That's maybe the clearest thing we've heard so far. That's fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
So that's for the representative, and that's again to be clear for whoever's listening or watching. This is for the 12th congressional. I'm in the same district as Yoana, and hopefully like we add some voter guides, we can get a little more info about people in other parts of the state.
Yeah, totally. The next really important, so now we're shifting to the California legislature, right? So far we were talking about federal offices, now we're shifting to California offices. The next really important race here is for the state Senate. And we are in the 7th Senate district.
Here in the Bay Area. Yeah.
That's most of the East Bay, a good chunk of the East Bay. And in that district, I also highly recommend that you vote for Jovanka Beckles. She is an incredible human being who is actually a mental health clinician and started her work in public health, working with impoverished, marginalized children in Contra Costa County. She was a Richmond City Council member for 2 terms and worked and got basically banned the box passed for city job applications.
Yeah.
She has pushed for and fought for rent control and for raising the minimum wage. She was then elected to the AC Transit Board in 2020, where she's currently working as well, and fought for all of us, for all the regular people, and has taken a very strong stance on ceasefire. Also from the very beginning, Jovanka came with us when we went to the California Democratic Convention in November, where a bunch of us disrupted business as usual and basically helped shut down the convention because neither the party nor Adam Schiff and Katie Porter, who were speaking, had called for a ceasefire. And we didn't think that business as usual should continue during a genocide. So Jovanka was there with us the whole day, and she actually helped open these. There was this moment where we had occupied essentially a part of the building, and the party had shut off all the bathrooms and all the water, so none of hundreds of people who were in there could go to the bathroom. And Jovanka single-handedly convinced some of the staff to open this one bathroom and gave
They
us
like
water.
lock the doors of the bathroom.
Yeah.
Also, it's pretty funny and rare that you hear people who are running for office protesting their own context, which is like there's something very beautiful and radical about that a big part of me loves.
Yeah. So she's the real deal. They locked the bathroom. She got the bathroom unlocked. It doesn't get more real than that in serving the movement. So yes, both for Jovanka Beckles.
Great. Okay. So again, just for folks that are listening or watching, Senate is there's the U.S. Senate, the U.S. House of Representatives. Those are the first two, and then now, so what we're talking about here is the state Senate. So this is the state version of that entity that operates within the state of California. That's like all of the like statewide work that folks are doing, and a lot of it that's happening in cannabis or psychedelics or mental health, other things. A lot of that's happening at the statewide level. A lot is happening in other places as well, but great.
Exactly.
Okay,
So,
thank you, Yoana. Great.
yeah. So our state legislature is made up of the state Senate, and the state assembly decides our state laws. So
Right.
when we're trying to decriminalize, psilocybin use in certain settings, that's a state law, right? So electing the right people to those positions allows us to get better laws passed,
Right.
that can serve our communities.
And I think that's the important thing, because like I think sometimes people forget that like the focus on politics on the individual is really just it's true, and it's also a proxy for these are larger things, which is like what do they believe, how will they vote, how will they make decisions down the line that affect us all kinds of ways.
Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
great. So we got the state Senate and so at the national level it's called the House of Representatives, which is the more population-based body. You could say demographic population-based body. At the state level in California, it's called the Assembly. So this next one is the State Assembly. Sorry, not getting into your job because I'm like, okay, I know a little bit about this.
No, I like it. This is fun. So I am, if you're in Oakland, Alameda, or Emeryville, you're in State Assembly District 18. It's the same assembly district that Democratic Central Committee vote is based on. And Mia Bonta has been our assembly member for a little while now. I'm still voting for her because she has done some really good work on criminal justice reform, on mental health. She recently helped she authored the bill that changed our penal code to make clear that the purpose of incarceration is rehabilitation and not punishment, and is pushing for more funding to go to CBOs that are doing work in prison. So that's important. There's a young new person, Andrea Sanford, who is running against her, power to him, for taking on somebody who's as big as Mia Bonta. So I want to just give him a shout out. I'm in conversation with him around some of his policies, and then there's two Republican people who are like straight up Trump Republicans.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah.
Good to know. Okay, 2 judges, Superior Court Judge, Office 5 is what I've got, and Office 12.
Right. So Office 5.
Is that also because of my local district?
Yeah. So Office 5, we don't have a choice. The only person who's listed on there is Terry Wiley.
That is what I see.
Yeah, Terry Wiley was an assistant district attorney at the Alameda County District Attorney's Office. He ran and lost to Pamela Price, and he has now found a way to become a judge, and nobody's running against him. So
cool.
I don't have that much to say here. We don't have a choice.
Then we'll leave it at that.
Yeah. The next one, office number 12, Michael Johnson versus Mark Fickes. I am certainly voting for Mark Fickes. He's been a commissioner for a long time. He has a lot of experience. He's very fair and, explains to people the legal process, which is oftentimes missing. There's other things about Michael Johnson that will remain unsaid that have given me pause. So vote for Mark.
Okay. That's helpful. And for context, I mean, I know we only have a few minutes, but I do want to flag that Yoana has worked in a number of different kind of contexts herself, like as a prosecutor's office, like with and around restorative justice programs. So like understanding the role of the judge is like not lost on you, or I think a lot of people, I think that in some ways that's almost easier to understand, I think, for people than the role of different representatives who are like in this kind of more amorphous political machine, whereas judges are like, oh yeah, those are the people that are making the decisions when things go down. So it's helpful to know.
Yeah, and it's the hardest thing to research judges, because if they've been, their positions are not, they cannot take a position on things that
a lot of things
become cases, so they are supposed to remain impartial, and so it's hard to know, but in this case we do know. Okay, so
a couple more things. So that's it for the people. Am I right about that?
No, one more very important one. Do you not see it on your ballot? I don't know why some ballots. No. Do you see county supervisor?
No.
That's so odd.
County supervisor on my ballot.
That is so odd.
I have city auditor, and that's it.
Somebody invited me to a ballot party that I met on text banking, and they too didn't have county supervisor on their ballot, and that is. I
have a county chapter amendment, but
no.
I can show you. It goes judges, judge, and then.
Yeah. Okay. Look at my ballot. There's the judges down here, and then up here it says county supervisor 5th district.
No, what I have is state Prop 1.
Yeah. Okay. I'm really concerned about this. We're in Oakland, and we have a very contested race for county supervisor, and everybody should be able to run in that race. So if you, like Izzy, are in this situation, I'm sorry to say, but please go to a polling place and show them this ballot and ask for a new ballot, because I really don't understand why this is missing in your ballot.
Okay.
Very odd.
That's good context.
Yeah, but just to give the people the information about this
totally.
race. So
there's no of it.
The Board of Supervisors is the legislative body of our county. They decide what to do with the $4 billion budget that our county has. So we're in Alameda County, and $4 billion the county can spend on various things like mental health, like our sheriff's department that manages our jails. That's not decided by our city, it's decided by our county. And also a whole bunch of different housing measures. So it's really important to get progressive people in those seats. In District 5, Keith Carson was in that seat for a long time, and he is not running. And so the seat opened up over the last few months abruptly. And not only, like a whole number of people jumped in. The person that I'll be voting for, and I encourage you to support as well, is Nikki Fortunato Bass. She's the second person listed on your ballot. She has been our Oakland City Council member for District 2, so the east side of the lake, and she's also been a city council member, or city council president. I know her because of the work we did together around reimagining public safety. There was a task force that was set up, and as a result of that task force, a couple $1 million were invested into the Department of Violence Prevention. So she's done a lot around prevention and intervention, and has been also advocating for more affordable housing, stemming evictions, preventing more evictions, and is trying to increase our county's funding for permanent supportive housing and wraparound services for folks with mental health issues. So she has our kind of community-based approaches to these issues, and she really supported our ceasefire resolution when AROC and a number of community organizers went to City Council and say, hey, we need Oakland to take a position on the ceasefire in Gaza. She's one of the people who said, okay, let's work on it. Carol Fife is the person who authored the resolution and has been our main champion. But Nikki Fortunato Bass was right there with Carol, and we couldn't have passed that resolution if it wasn't for her. As well.
Great. So again, that's not on mine, but if you don't have that on your ballot, then you can ask in person.
Yes. And one more quick shout out. If you live in the kind of in the Oakland Hills, or going further south into like Hayward, San Leandro, the incorporated areas, you'll be in Board of Supervisors District 4. And I really hope that you vote for Jennifer Esteen. She's one of the most courageous people I know. She's taken on a very established incumbent by the name of Nate Miley, who's been in that position for 25 years. And we really need Jen to create a change from that position.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, this is getting, okay, all right, y'all. We're almost at the end. Prop 1, state proposition.
Yeah.
It's a very complicated one, so I'm going to try to keep
This is a very complicated one. I almost like used to talk about it, and also like I have feelings about it, but they're not fully baked. So I'm thinking about having a longer conversation like this before the election on Prop 1, because like working in and around mental health and access to care, there's a lot of opinions about it. I don't feel really clear enough myself to share at this time, but I might want to have a longer conversation, because this is like speaking to like one of the biggest issues that I think people are seeing and feeling, and people have a lot of different opinions about how to navigate it. So yeah, I'm curious about your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I'll share briefly, and then just to say I've also felt very conflicted about it. It took me a long time to make up my mind, and I'm still making up my mind. So yes to the longer conversation. So just so folks know, what Prop 1 will do is it would amend something called the Mental Health Services Act, which passed in 2004 and imposed a 1% tax on people making over $1 million. And it took that money and sent it to counties. It gave counties a lot of flexibility about how to use that money on mental health services. So a lot of our like county peer support work, county general mental health, behavioral health has been funded by that.
Yeah, everything from like crisis intervention to halfway homes to like a lot of different kind of elements of the larger mental health infrastructure in the state. Like a lot of folks, like, you know, if you're finding county funding for mental health services, probably coming through that route in most of the state.
And so what Prop 1 would do is it would remove some of that flexibility and tell counties to spend a chunk of the money specifically on people with severe mental health illness who need housing. So spending money on permanent housing, on supportive housing, which, you know, is like housing plus case management for people with severe mental illness. And that is a critical part of tackling our housing crisis right now, or our homelessness crisis right now. We absolutely need more beds. We absolutely need case management and more mental health support. The concern there is that money will be taken away from those things that Izzy listed, from crisis support centers, from peer support, etc. And when we take money from the folks who are on the edge, we risk putting them on the street as well. And I really think there's enough money out there that we shouldn't have to do that. So that's like my personal opinion, is why I'm leaning towards voting no, because I just don't like that we have to take money from one group of people who really needs it to give it to another group of people who really needs it.
Do you know where people can find, like, given that it's the only proposition and it's on an issue that's like so high intensity, do you know anywhere that people can find more information? If not, I'll also share some stuff because I'm looking into it as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's an SF Chronicle article that is helpful. They've endorsed Prop 1, so you'll get their perspective on it. I use Pete's voting guide. This guy Pete, who's like amazing and writes this voting guide, and everybody loves him in Oakland. And he's connected to a lot of progressive organizations locally who have taken a no stand on Prop 1 for the reason that I mentioned, and also for the second reason, which is that the second part of the proposition would authorize a $6.38 billion bond, which again is a good thing to create more behavioral health treatment beds. But the concern there is that a number of them are going to go towards locked psychiatric facilities. So people, a lot of us are concerned about carceral solutions, carceral approaches to mental health. So that's another reason why a lot of folks are voting no.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. That's helpful. And
Yeah.
like I said, I think I'm going to do a little bit more because I do think that this is like a massive deal, and I feel like people should know, especially because the way it's framed is like, hey, there's a problem, people aren't housed, what do we do about it? And this is sort of being framed as like one possible solution to that.
Yeah. Yeah. We need
Or
solutions. One
approach is
approach.
maybe the better word.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
exactly. Totally.
Okay, we've got just a couple more. I know that you have to go in a little bit. I have to go a little bit. I'm sure people are like, well, what's going on here? See, this is why it's good that we're doing this ahead of time and not like literally the day of, because I have not always been the most responsible when it comes to civic engagement. So there's a county amendment. What, I don't even know what that means when I read it. I don't actually, and I know a decent amount about some of this stuff, and I don't know what that means.
Yeah, so it's Measure A, which is listed under the category of county. It's basically what it would do is reduce the time that people are waiting to fill in civil service positions. There's like
Okay, so
currently
it
a
speeds up the
process
tempo of people
hiring.
being the process. Okay, that seems
Very
like
no-brainer.
a good thing.
Yes, it's a good thing. I'm
Faster
voting yes.
filling of empty roles. Okay.
I'm voting yes on Measure A.
Okay. Okay.
Um,
Okay. Woo.
Measure, I
One thing
know.
that was like kind of clear. Local
Um,
government, move faster. Perfect.
yeah, local government, do your thing and don't sit on people's applications for a long period of time. So Measure B is a little slightly bit more complicated, but essentially
Okay.
it has to do with the rules for
Uh-huh.
recalls.
Uh-huh. Right, which
Very,
has come up a lot in the last few years in the Bay Area and other parts of California because people are like not so happy with whoever's in it's happened across the board, right? Like this conversation about recalls, it's like almost more hype than the election itself, which is maybe part of the problem.
yeah. I have a lot of thoughts on that. I'll share in a little bit, but
Sure.
just to get back to Measure B, what it will do, it will align our county's recall rules with the California recall rules. So that means that our right now our county is using recall rules that come from our county charter, which was passed a long time ago and is outdated. That's the short of it. And we
Mm-hmm.
want it to be like the California rules. So I'm voting yes on Measure B. And just to touch on the much bigger problem of recalls, there is valid reasons why people may want to recall somebody who's already in office, like they are breaking the law, like they are engaging in discrimination and being abusive. But unfortunately, what's happened over the last few
Mm-hmm.
years is that the recall tool has been abused by people who lost the elections and are
Mm-hmm.
now trying. Okay.
Great. More about
I do not understand how Instagram Live works, but here we are. Sorry, everybody, for the delay. I'm just going to share very briefly where we left off with the recalls,
mm-hmm.
and then we can do a quick summary and say thank you to everybody. So, what we were speaking about Measure B, which is
Mm-hmm.
one of our county measures. I recommend we vote yes on Measure B. And I was speaking more broadly to a really, really important thing that's not currently on our ballot, but is could be in our ballot if the recall campaign against DA Price collects enough signatures. And I just want to let everybody know it's very important that we do not sign the petition to recall DA Price. Yes, we have a crime problem in Oakland. Yes, things are bad, but she's not to blame for that. When she was elected district attorney in November of 2022, before she was even sworn in, the folks who lost the election started collecting money to start the recall process. So it has nothing to do with the policy she put in place. It has to do with the fact that they didn't want a progressive district attorney, a Black woman, somebody who was going to do things differently in that office. And they have so far raised over $1 million from real estate lobbies and developers. There we go. from 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 even Republican, folks, some of whom are out of county and out of state, in order to weave this narrative that she is at fault for the rise in crime. The rise in crime started before she was elected and has
Right.
continued for a reason outside of her control. And so these forces that are part of a much bigger national situation where the Republican Party is trying to frame progressive leaders as being at fault for the the falling and the challenges in our city is very much problematic. And a lot of our progressive leaders are being attacked right now, especially our Black and brown progressive leaders. So we have to stand with DA Price. We have to say no to the backlash against criminal justice reform. We haven't even started to really create the change that we've been trying to create. And a lot of the poverty and the homelessness, the mental health crisis, the addiction, the crime that we're seeing is a result of policies that were put in place before. As a result of
often if not years, if not decades, for sure. Like these are long standing.
Yeah, so all that to say, please, when you see the recall petitioners in front of your grocery store or at your farmer's market, do not sign the petition. Tell your friends to not sign the petition. We do not want DA Price recalled. We want her to be able to stay in office and do what the voters of Alameda County want her to do.
Also, just in practice, like it takes anyone who's worked in any remotely close to any sort of city, local, state government understands that it takes time to do anything, and the idea that like people can make change on such a whiplash schedule, I think is just crazy because nothing happens that fast, and we kind of need to get used to this different timeline. Doesn't mean we have to like give up on making change either, but there's a certain level of like practicality there. Okay, so let's go to this last thing. Yeah.
And very last, this is super quick. Vote yes on Measure D. There's like a city charter that requires that things go before the voters periodically to approve spending on things that the voters already said they want spending on. So we're just saying yes to the City of Oakland spending revenue for emergency responses, paramedic services, a whole bunch of things that we already voted on before.
The zoo, services, parks, and BRAC, like that looks pretty good.
Libraries, yeah. So it's something we already voted on. They just have to get it before the voters periodically for reauthorization.
Okay.
So great. That completes our ballot, everybody.
Thank you, Yo-Yo, for spending the time, Yoana, for spending the time and going through this with me. I definitely have more research to do. I definitely feel much better prepared to do it, and I feel much clearer on like the larger issues. I guess my last question for you is there anything else that you think people should know as they think about engaging with electoral politics, whether it's here in the county of Alameda, in the city of Oakland, in California in general, like any like last words you might have for folks who might be listening now or later?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess just to go back to where we started, there's a lot of things that are wrong with our political system. And there's some people who are trying to create change, and we need to know who they are, and we need to back them up and vote for them. So even if you don't really want to vote for president, you don't have to fill anything out in that field. You can take your ballot and vote for the other candidates that I just mentioned. And just to summarize them, vote for Lateefah Simon, vote for Barbara Lee, vote for Nikki Fortunato-Baz, vote for Jovanka Beckles, Mark Vickers, etc. And there are some places on this long thing that you're seeing in front of you where your vote will make a huge difference. In the Democratic Central Committee race, all 29 of us who are running, we're all going to be super close. Like we could, I could lose this election as somebody who's running by like 5 votes.
Yeah. So it's like really, single digits literally matter.
Yeah, single digits matter. Your vote does matter. For the Democratic Central Committee in particular, please vote for the People Power Progressive slate. There's 10 of us who are willing to bring change to our local Democratic Party body and really serve our people from there. So I will drop in the comments some more things about how to support, but it means a lot to me that Izzy, you're willing to have this conversation, and
totally
we can link these videos up and maybe post them on YouTube or something to get
that
more
sounds
folks.
Great. I can tell you that I'm really, and I think that maybe this is the last piece and takeaway for me, which is that like it's been really hard, if not impossible, for me to vote for a president for a long time. It's really challenging sometimes just to participate in the process at all. But as someone who engages with local and state politics, I do realize that the people who we put into not just like the top position, but like every little other one also really, really matters. So I hope just people like do the research, think about it. And yeah, please do share some voter guides both for the region and also for the state, because I imagine that there's folks all over who are paying attention. So thank you, Yoana. Have a great, I think that Yoana has like 3 events to go to after this. So I hope you have a good rest of the evening and get to meet people and share. And I hope everyone else out there has a good rest of your day and weekend. And I wish us all the best, honestly, as we try to continue to build, design, and create the future that we hope to live in.
Yeah. Absolutely. Let's do it together. Love you all. Love you, Izzy.
Peace.
Bye.